Pretty much. It's been good.
And we rolling right with our next guest, straight from the Bay Area, San Francisco. We got H2O in the building. H2O, how you feeling, man?
Oh man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed, especially to be in between you two good brothers.
Oh, thank you.
You know, a staple of the Bay Area, and really trying to promote, you know, these types of things and these types of interviews. We really appreciate.
Oh yeah, appreciate you.
I want to take it back. You know what I mean? Obviously, the success in which you've had is immaculate. You know, touring and you know all of the writing and everything that you've done. But what got you started in the music and you know celebrating just after 50 years of hip hop? You know, 51 coming up. Yeah. So what got you started in your career?
You know what? Honestly, man, coming from the Bay, my mother, a single parent. You know, we had our trials and tribulations, and my motto was, how could I do better than what my mother's tried to do and provide? And I love music. I fell in love. I had a cassette tape with Eric B. and Rakim.
Okay.
And Rakim was an incredible lyricist, still is an incredible lyricist, and really kind of got me in this, like, man, this is what I want to do. So I had started in the Bay. I don't know if you brothers remember, back in the day, I was in a group called H2O, and it was DJ Qbert, Mixmaster Mike, and Apollo. And if everybody knows, Qbert is probably one of the best DJs in the world. Mixmaster Mike is DJ for the Beastie Boys, as well as Cypress Hill.
So I would be familiar with Cypress Hill. Yeah, he was over there.
So the list goes on. And so that's kind of where it all began. And I had another rap artist, his name was FMD. And so we started that, we were the only ones at that time to do a blend of mesh of like rock, rap, before even PE did it with Anthrax back in the day. Man, 3 DJs and 2 MCs was unheard of. So we, at that time, Qbert and Mike, they won a DMC competition in New York, and so it was kind of interesting to have a Bay Area artist, you know, representing. Right. We just crushed it there. So a big part of history in the Bay Area.
So being from the Bay, like, how much of that whole hyphy kind of too short, the 90s E40,
right?
You know, right. Is Mac Dre from the Bay?
Of course.
Okay, the Mac Dre. I'm sorry, I ain't slept in 24 hours.
Oh man, he's a staple.
But yeah, the Mac Dre, like those kind of artists. Like, how much of impact and like the sound that you kind of were catered toward being from there was developed by their sound?
To be honest with you, I've always kind of been more of an East Coast sounding MC. I was more like. It's funny because being from the Bay and understanding just kind of how the Bay moves and understanding like the music, I try to set myself apart from sounding like I was from the Bay, just because I come from the time with the originality, right? So you had artists like Tribe Called Quest and Public Enemy and, you know, Common and so on and so forth. So no one sounded really the same. Yeah. So I kind of adapted more of an East Coast sound, and that's kind of how I wanted to put my pen down and be more of a lyricist. Mr. Fab and all those guys, man, they're incredibly talented artists, and they have their sound. Keek the Sneak and all them, they have their sound, and that's part of who I am, is from the Bay Area. But we all don't have to sound the same. We all don't have to be within the same kind of realms without having to still create the music that sounds the same, you know what I mean? So I try to just kind of step outside and do my own thing.
So like, I'm in LA a lot, you know, and I know the music scene out there. So like, how much of that whole LA kind of gangster rap vibe played into the development of your sound?
Oh man, see, my family was kind of deep in the struggles of the streets, and so I kind of, again, I just wanted to be an individual, and I never really adapted to that type of lifestyle, and I didn't want to promote that in my music.
Okay.
So it's always, for me, it was always like, how do I uplift, you know, the next man, instead of how do I figure out a way to be a part of the problem, although it's part of life. You know, there's some things you just kind of know your place, and you just kind of say, you know what, this is where I bow out, and I just make good music for people.
I got you.
And you know, you had the opportunity to work with a lot of great artists.
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite artists that you've had the privilege to work with?
Oh man, Bruno Mars, if you guys got time, I'd love to kind of share a little story.
Absolutely.
How I met Bruno. It's crazy. No one's heard this story, so this is super exclusive.
This is a Real Deal Sports Show exclusive. It's the
Super
Real Deal
exclusive.
World premiere.
World premiere. No, so my man Keith Harris, I actually, I'm trying to make this kind of a very short story because it's long and drawn out. But I met my man Keith Harris, actually here in Vegas. They used to have, I don't know if they still have Magic. It's the kind of fashion show. And so there was a guy behind the rope, and it happened to be Keith. I didn't know at the time he was a drummer for the Black Eyed Peas. So I let him, I was like, hey, can you hear my music? And he's like, man, there's music playing in the club. He's like, how am I gonna hear it? So I was like, come on, please, just listen. So he put the headset on. He was like, man, is this you? I was like, yeah. So I waited in front of, he told me that he was going on tour, and it was only gonna be for a couple of days, which ended up turning into 2 weeks, and every day I drive from the Bay Area to LA and sit in front of
6-7 hours every day.
Yeah, his house, just for an opportunity to be able to meet him and really kind of further my music career. Because at this time, not only was he a drummer for the Black Eyed Peas, I mean he contributed to a lot of the production of a lot of their hits, like Meet Me Halfway, I'ma Be, Switch for Fergie.
Yeah, and that whole thing with Will I Am. Will I Am is from Compton. Like his sound is so out of. It's like it's the last thing you expect to come out of there. And like I remember watching him in I think it was a VH1 documentary where he said like he makes music that can be played everywhere. Yeah. Like he was the sound like the way he's supposed to sound coming out of Compton.
Right.
It'll only get played one way on one station and it'll have that one audience. But what he did with the Black Eyed Peas was he made them to where. What category are they in? What genre is the Black Eyed Peas?
Exactly, and that's kind of where, kind of moving forward with this story is kind of what they were trying to do when I started working with them, kind of produce for my group. But to get back to the story with how Bruno came into play is that every time I would go to LA, when I finally met up with him and I started doing music with Keith, he tried to create me as like the next big artist. And so I had writers with me, which I was doing most of the writers, but for some of the hooks and things like that, people would kind of come in and out. So ironically, Bruno was one of the people that was there at the Claiborne House, which that was the place that we did the recording. The guitarist George Pahone, who's a great friend of mine too, that guitar player for the Black Eyed Peas. He owned the studio that was in the back of the Claiborne House. So Bruno would come in there with Phil, who was another writer that used to write with Bruno, and they came in and they were writing. And I have 2 songs with Bruno. One is called "Turn Me On" that we recorded back in those days. And then we had another song that we did together. So they were kind of grooming Bruno. Bruno was an incredible writer. Phil was an incredible writer. And so it just so happened that I've known Bruno before he was Bruno Mars. I just looked at him as he's a short guy that danced like Michael Jackson, that was mad talented. So the song that if you guys could find it, because I think the label's kind of pulled it, I'm not sure, but you can find it. Again, it's called "Turn Me On." I did that song with him, and the beginning of the song I say I'd like to introduce Bruno, because I thought that I was going to be that next person, and then I was going to introduce Bruno. But then when my group went on tour, we were headed to Miami, and all of a sudden I heard the song, and it was the song he did with B.O.B. And I said, man, this guy sounds familiar, and happened to be that first single.
And I think that was the song that put him over too, wasn't
exactly. That's how that whole thing came about. So Bruno, it got a special place in my heart because, I go back and I really know kind of that side of that story.
Bruno before he was Bruno Mars.
Exactly. Yeah. Great, talented, dope. I didn't mean to take so much time.
Nah, you're good.
There's a lot more to it, but I'm gonna say
the short version.
No, that's Bruno, and that's excellent. But Will I Am as well,
Well, so with Will and Keith work. They're almost like a production team, right? They got congrats to Will, congrats to Keith. I mean, they got so many awards that they've won just as of recently for Remo and all those. But they've always worked kind of close together. And Keith's whole thing with me was, you're gonna be an artist, make sure you bring your laptop. He used to always say that, bring your laptop. So I got a chance with a laptop with Michael Jackson, the laptop with Nas when he was with Khalees, saw a lot of those songs go down. A lot of
in the room.
Yeah, it was in the room. Yeah.
Wow.
And
What's the experience like with Mike?
Mike was it was just I was just a fly on the wall in that situation because I didn't even stay. It was kind of like a very, but the experience with Nas and Police and the list goes on with other artists that I've had an opportunity just to be on a fly on the wall at that time. I was just soaking up game and understanding how to be a great writer, a great MC, and that was kind of that whole process.
Absolutely. Right. Well, where can we find your music?
Oh man, you just look online, search H2O featuring Bruno Mars, and probably the first thing, and then probably have my discography, other things that I've done. I got mixtapes that are out. I have other songs that you probably can see that I've written, things like that.
Absolutely, man. H2O out of the Bay. I don't know. We got to talk about it. 49ers, Kansas City.
Oh, Niners. Bang, bang, gang.
What's the keys? What's the keys to the game?
Keys to the gang. Purdy gotta stay on his feet. We know who the stars are. They just need to go to them. McCaffrey gotta get that work in. Kansas City is no pushover. My man Rasheed Wallace, he's a huge Kansas City fan. I'm sure he's gonna hear this. But it's Niner time, man. We gotta go. We gotta go with that one.
As a Piston fan, I can't let you say about Sheed like that, man. Just
man.
Especially now because they're not watchable anymore. And Sheed might have been the last great Piston team that carried that bad boy legacy.
I tell you, he's definitely one of the realest guys that I've ever met in my life. He's a man of his word. He has integrity. There's nothing wrong and nothing bad I can say about that man. Good dude. Well, it's his passion. He wears it on his sleeve. So.
All right, H2O, we salute you, man.
Hey, keep doing it. Much, man. Really appreciate it.
Real deal sports.
Thank you so much, brother. I was just gonna leave by saying, things are changing. I think digital is coming into play with a lot of music. There's a lot of opportunities for young men, young women to make money in the digital world. Start investing your time into really understanding the blockchain technology, so you can start getting royalties in a different way for your music. I'm gonna leave it with that because that's something that's new, it's untapped, and there's people that are trying it that they could be very successful if they really try to kind of put their heart into it.
Another
That's a gym for y'all.
Exclusive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Perfect. Best-selling author Tanya Wise, certified financial strategist and your money mentor, shows you how to reduce debt and increase cash flow. 2024 is moving fast, so start your path today with the ultimate upgrade, sound guidance, and strategy to change your life.